guys, lovely to see everybody. So today we're going to talk about warm-up, which we know is a really important component of fitness. It's something that we should do before every conditioning session and also every game that we're involved with. There's a number of reasons that we want to do a good, efficient, effective warm-up. Although it might feel tempting to just run out there and start officiating without a warm-up, there's a number of reasons that we might choose to do so. So the key things really for me is we're going to increase our heart rate. So we want to build up the intensity gradually over a duration of probably 10 to 15 minutes. Within that, we're going to increase our heart rate, increase our breathing rate, increase our sweat rate. The movement patterns that we choose to do are going to increase our range of movement in a functional way. So, for example, we want to make sure that we increase our hamstring range of movement so that when we accelerate or decelerate, when we're officiating, our hamstrings aren't kind of thinking, what are we doing? They're prepared and comfortable with the acceleration, deceleration that we might choose to do. We want to gradually increase the intensity over time. So within the 10 to 15 minute time frame that we're going to do our warm up with, we'll start at a lower level, start to get up the heart rate, nice steady movement patterns. Research indicates that dynamic flexibility is the best way to mobilize our muscles within a warm-up. So that means that we're warming the muscle tissue, increasing the range of movement all at the same time. So we can do hamstrings, quads, hip flexors, calves, groins, all in that way in a dynamic flexibility process. That way we're going to just get the body action and it's going to be functional. So it's not like we're going to have to do a static stretch and hold and then decide to sprint and run. We're more likely to pull our muscles that way if the body isn't warm. But also research again indicates that, for example, static stretching decreases power output. And we know that when we're officiating, we need to be dynamic, powerful, reactive in all the movement patterns that we do on the pitch. So we don't want to reduce power output. We want to be dynamic and increase power output and increase capacity. With the dynamic flexibility, I would hold those movements for probably about 3, 4, 5 seconds. So it's not, like I say, a static stretch. It's a nice dynamic, getting the heart rate up, getting the body warm whilst you work through that range of movement. We can also foam roll before we train or perform in a match. So the myofascial release work, which you might use with a massage ball or foam roller, is really good to release the tissue, especially if you've travelled to a game, you're a little bit stiff and sore. So again, I would do that before you start your dynamic loading. But again, it's very individual. If you feel like you want to do it after your warm up and you're nice and warm, you can pop in for your calves if you're susceptible to calves, or your glutes, for example, or your low back, then they're really good things to do. I'd like really with the gradual intensity for you to kind of hit rating of perceived exertion, so the RPE at 0 to 10 scale of about 8 towards the end of the warm up. So the last probably 1 or 2, 3 minutes, high intensity spurts of accelerate, decelerate, change direction, back pedal, turn and go. So we're really challenging ourselves. What we don't want to do is in the first minute of the game, you've got to bust it, to the try line, and you haven't prepared for the high intensity work, and then you end up pulling the muscle. So you have to be prepared for the first whistle, as you know, all the way through to the 80th minute, which is where the conditioning comes in. But certainly making sure that you're ready to prepare the full whack, full performance at that point at the start of the game is really important. Don't use the game to warm up, prepare for the game. Match specific movement patterns, include those in your warm up. So think about what you do. Don't just run in a straight line. Make sure you do some side slides, some backward running, turn and go, curved runs, all the different movement patterns that you do. If you're running the line as an AR, then think about how you might run the line. Do you run side slide? Do you turn and go sideways? Think about those groins and protecting those movements, conditioning those patterns within the warm up. I also think that the warm-up's part of your mental preparation. You get in the middle of the park, you start warming up, you're looking at the teams, you're presenting an image of professionalism. They know that you're ready to go and be professional as an official, which I think gives you a bit of respect and image when you start to referee the game. So that for me is also part of it. It's not just the physical preparation that you're doing, it's the mental preparation. It's looking at the teams, thinking about your team. If you're a team of the AR, even TMO, how are you prepared? Is there anything you need to think about before you step out and blow the whistle? And do you train as a group when you warm up? Again, these are maybe things we can talk about in a moment. If you are in a group of 3 with the ARs, do you all do it together as a group? Do you do it individually? Do you need your own time to get your head around the game? How do you feel about that? So these are kind of things that I think are really important components of a warm up. So any thoughts on that, guys? How does that sound for you?
Yeah, it sounds pretty good from my point of view, Alex. The other thing that I would sort of add, obviously, for guys, and you mentioned it partially in your sort of your synopsis, there was getting and traveling to a game. Obviously, a lot of people may not have been sitting in cars for quite some time, but they'll have been sitting around. They might have not got too much movement through their body. So what I do personally is I make sure I get there a little bit earlier and get there, have plenty of time before I need to do anything at the game, like brief and do this, that, and the other. So I'm not rushing. So I get there a little bit earlier and have that extra bit of time mobilizing my body, and making sure that all the important bits, lower backs and everything is switched on and loose and nice and free, so that when I do go into the warm up, I'm actually free and everything's firing in the right order and making sure it all works properly. So that would be the only thing that I would suggest to anyone who's coming back into return to rugby, is just say, look, get there early, make use of the time. Don't just get there to the game. I know a lot of us normally have to get there about an hour and a half before the game, or some of us at society levels, maybe 45 minutes. Get there a little bit early, make use of your time. Don't just lounge around and not do a massive amount, but you're there to do a job, and make sure you get yourself ready to do that job as best you can.
Yeah, to add to that as well, what I've really enjoyed is using like rubber bands and these bits of equipment and incorporating them into my warm ups. As Hamish was saying, that they're when you're driving and stuff, you'll get sore legs, sore glutes, and lower back, and then it allows me to activate them and then get some firing ready before running. So I like to do that before I go out and actually start my running process.
I agree. I think to do that activation, that those glutes are really important, and if they go to sleep, then we know, again, research based, that if you've got sleepy glutes, then it can affect knees, it can affect proprioception, it can affect function, hamstrings, lumbar spine, all those kind of things. So I think you're absolutely right. Do some pre-activation, be professional, do what you know you need to do to prepare, which the glute band activation, pre-activation, proprioception, hop and holds. Having had a knee injury, Woody, I'm sure that's up your sleeve for your preparation as well as the foam rolling. Again, Hamish, knowing his history with lumbar spine, hamstrings, calves, those kind of self-managed kind of techniques and routines are really, really important. You're absolutely right, guys. I think it's good, really good.
Yeah, I think one of the things I learned, particularly sort of in my earlier years of refereeing, and I always knew what my non-negotiable warm-ups were. And I was like, as long as I've done these stretches, these dynamic exercises, these bits and bobs, as I know I can go out and do a game on this minimum, and then any other movements, any other opportunities I get is a bonus. But as long as I know these key things that work for me, I can go out and I'll be all right. Because sometimes that'll happen, there'll be an interruption, there'll be something comes up, and suddenly your warm-up gets cut short by 10 minutes or something. So I think as long as you know the minimum you've got to do to get you ready, that's a big thing.
I think that's a great point. Really good. Yeah.
Anything I'd add, Al, is just know your body. I mean, I'm someone who I suffer from a few bits and pieces that I know others don't. Like, my hips are always tight, so I always try and incorporate a bit of hip mobility into my warm up. The stuff covered, driving to games. Some of us have to drive a bit further than others, and I know that when I get out the car when I first arrive, I'm not in a good way. So I always make sure to do loads of rolling my back out and just really stretching out before I even get out onto the pitch to start my warm up. But just obviously we've all got specific bits that work for us a bit more than others, and we've all got certain ailments like Hamish's glass calves, and you know, my dodgy hip. So we have to focus on those bits more than others sometimes.
And I think it's important, you know, people that see you guys officiate probably think you just rock up, do your warm up and carry on. And actually, they don't know how much background work you guys do to be healthy and fit and robust and resilient to do the jobs that you do. And I think that that's really important. You know, it doesn't just happen. You work at it, and I think you're right, Adam. I think body protection, body awareness, knowing what you need at any level in any sport is kind of key to keeping injury free and training smart, which is really important.
I've always warmed up well. It's a mental thing as well as a physical thing for me. If I've not run around beforehand, I don't feel like I'm ready for it anyway. So I probably do too much warming up in some ways. But yeah.
Do you feel everyone that part of that is your mental prep for the game as well, especially if it's a big game? Do you feel like that's part of your process?
Yeah, I suppose big games, not necessarily, because I've been thinking about it all week. It's probably, if anything, the lesser games. So if I'm going out to do a game where I think I should have this, don't worry about this. Do you know what I mean? That's when I have to put myself in the right place, because I'll just turn up and referee rubbish for the first 10 minutes because I'm thinking about what I'm having for dinner tonight or something like that, to be honest.
So you've got to get in the zone then. So you use it to help you get in the zone.